you are going to ride your bike 100 miles. You have to. It's like a rite of passage, like running a marathon is for runners and other things are for other sports. And when you do, you're gonna have friends, Mitch, a community. Your boss is gonna say, hey, that ride has nothing to do with your job, but here's a raise, because you rode 100 miles. It's gonna be awesome.
It's a million degrees right now. It's so humid. I got sunscreen in my eyes, and there's still like 58 miles to go.
My first mistake was using too much sunscreen. I know that's a strange thing to say, especially for someone pale like me. My 23andMe ancestry report is basically just a map of Northern Europe that says avoid the sun at all costs. In fact, multiple people on both my mom and my dad's side of the family have had skin cancer. So I want to be super clear. Protect yourself from skin cancer. I'm also saying, if you happen to be riding from Miami, where your wife's family lives, all the way to the southernmost tip of Key West, 134 miles away, and it's super humid outside because you're in Florida, where even at 7 a.m. before the sun is fully up, it feels like you're inside of a sauna that has been turned up to 11. If that's the situation you're in, maybe don't douse yourself completely in sunscreen like you normally do.
About to enter Key Largo. About an hour in, all the sunscreen I put on my face is dripping into my eye.
Because the entire route is on a highway, you're not going to want to take your hands off the handlebars since cars are passing you at 55 miles an hour. So you just ride along with your eyes burning the entire 134 miles. So the moral here is, when applying sunscreen on a ride, maybe just apply a little bit at a time and repeat often. Otherwise, at mile 80, you're going to look like a complete mess. And that's not a great look when you're meeting up with your in-laws for dinner at the destination. If you're sweating a lot, you're losing a lot of water. And I sweat a lot. Even though I brought 3 water bottles and planned to refill them often throughout the ride, I still managed to run out of water right around noon when the temperature was beginning to peak at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Oops. And of course, when I drained the last drop from the last water bottle, I was in between keys, where there was no restaurant, there were no gas stations, nowhere to refill my water bottles. Way to go, Mitch.
All right, we are 71 miles
I was saved by a generous dive shop attendant who had a cooler full of water. I was too embarrassed to be like that guy filming a conversation with a stranger, so I didn't get any footage, but I did sneak off behind to this little dock to get some B-roll. If you're in the Keys, go give these guys your business, please, because they saved me. The attendant directed me to the nearest town, where I had a lunch at like a bait shop or like a marina or something. I don't know what it was. Basically a gas station for boats. Don't be like me and wait until you're all out of water to refill your bottles. Also, I chugged that whole Starbucks in like 2 seconds. Normally, I hate Starbucks. It tastes burnt. As a content creator, I'm constantly trying to make good content. And sometimes that comes at the expense of my biking performance. There's definitely a delicate balance of trying to have a good ride versus making a good video of a ride. Those are two very different things. And I know this mistake probably seems niche to like YouTubers and content creators, but hear me out. There's a bigger lesson here. Unlike the water situation, I was over-prepared in the camera department. I brought my GoPro, I brought my phone, I brought my big mirrorless camera, too many cameras. And with the mirrorless camera, there's no way I was gonna unlatch the strap and swing it around to get a shot while I was riding on the highway. Even pulling my phone out for bridge shots felt super sketchy. The big camera just added weight and hassle to the ride. I got a ton of good footage during the first half of the ride. I'm laughing, I'm smiling, I'm taking pictures with dolphins, divers. But over the course of the ride, the footage started to become shorter, shakier, and foggier. You can only juggle so many balls before you start dropping them. Let's go back to my lunch.
I'm here at a bait and tackle shop on Marathon Key. I came to grab some coffee, just like a Starbucks. Val just texted me, our little pup Vivian is not doing great. Her back, she's a dachshund, they have back problems. Bad news is her back seems to be acting up. This has happened before, and usually the vet has us put her in the crate, and she's on crate rest for a while, and then it's okay. So hopefully that's what happens again. So the good news is Vivian is in her crate in the car.
I was exhausted, and now I was worried about Vivian too. I really thought about turning around, but Val, her parents, and our little dog were all on their way to meet me at the end.
Back to the road, I guess.
The goal immediately shifted from making a good video to just finish the ride. When I hit mile 100, I looked like a crazy person. Sunscreen all over my face, dripping sweat, slightly delirious. I just ridden 100 miles for the very first time. It should have been a moment of celebration, but I still had 34 miles to go. The footage was getting worse and worse. I was worried about my dog, and I was drained. And then it started raining. There was no way all of my cameras were going to survive this Florida downpour, especially the expensive one on my back that I had just purchased a few weeks before. But again, I found myself in between keys. There's nowhere to stop and get cover, so I just kept riding. After a few minutes of riding in the rain, something strange happened. Maybe it's because the rain dropped the temperature into the 80s and my heart rate was able to calm down a bit. Maybe it's because I slowed my pace after hitting the 100-mile mark, or maybe it's purely psychological. But around mile 120, dripping wet with no end to the rain in sight, I got my second wind. And because Florida weather is super temperamental, when I entered Key West 8 miles later, it was sunny again. Plus, as an added bonus, the rain didn't kill the cameras, it cleaned the lenses. Somehow the weather sealing on all of them, including the expensive one, magically held up. It still works. I'm filming this with that camera right now. I coasted my way through Key West all the way to the southernmost tip of the continental United States. The ride was finished. Fun fact, that little marker there is 90 miles to Cuba. After riding an exhausting 134 miles, there was no way I was going to wait in a giant line for a silly tourist photo. Halfway through the ride, I wanted to give up.
The funny thing is I'm gonna love this at the end.
And I was right.
I loved it.
I'm already planning my next big ride. It's much bigger. Look, I made a lot of mistakes, but I did one thing right. I pushed through and I finished it. Maybe I was wrong about the whole my boss will give me a raise for no reason thing, but I was right about the community part. By the way, after a few days of crate rest, Vivian is back to her normal self.